Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you a look at the Zhiyun Molus X60. This is a light that is both incredibly cool to look at and surprisingly versatile. It weighs less than a pound, it can be remotely controlled, it has full RGB compatibility. It comes with, depending on the package you buy, it comes with this battery grip that can just clip right into place and can give you 50 plus minutes of runtime even at 100% output. You can power this via that battery grip, AC adapter, V-mount battery, or even a power bank with a good power delivery standard. It is a 60 watt light. It's chip on board that will produce around 12,000 lux at 1 meter with the included reflector mounted. And the whole assembly here is obviously small enough to easily pop into my camera bag and to bring it along. Because of all of those reasons, I've actually really enjoyed using this light and love the versatility of what I can do with it and what you can produce as far as the variety of outputs. It's really, really versatile. So we're going to dive in and take a look first at some specs. I'm going to run through some of the tests that I've done of the light and what I discovered when I put it through those tests. I'll show you some portraits, some video clips, some things along the way, and then give you some things I like, some things I don't like, and my conclusion. Let's jump in. So as far as the basic specs here, if you're using just the bare light without the reflector in place, the light produces at a distance of 1 meter, 6,500 Kelvin. It produces 2,010 lux according to the manufacturer. It has a range of 2,700 to 6,500 Kelvin in CCT mode. And then of course beyond that it has full RGB if you're buying the RGB equipped model, which we were testing here. As noted, you can run it off AC or battery power. It very easily can be attached via USB-C and run off of a variety of different sources. And then of course the actual battery grip can pop into place. And by the way, those of you that have bought previously the battery grip from the X100, yes, you can use that here as well. Now it has onboard controls here along the back. It also has Bluetooth app control. It is rated at CRI 95 and TLCI of 98. It has an active cooling design with some internal fans. You can see it has a very, very compact. You pop everything else here out of the place. It is a very compact little module here. Now obviously because of the compact size, this is not Bowens mount compatible in its native form. It actually uses their ZY mount compatibility. So there is a range of accessories you can buy with that mount, including in that, however, is an adapter. So you can use Bowens mount as well. Now it comes with the pouch, the case that we show here. There's an AC adapter inside. It does come with the mini reflector. It does come with a diffusing dome to go over the top of that. Now the battery grip you can get packaged in with either one or two of them depending on the package. It is rated at 2,550 mAh or right under or right over 55 watt hours. And so that's rated to give you a little over 50 minutes at 100% capacity. We will test that. The whole package here weighs in at about 319 grams for the fixture, or with the battery grip in place, that jumps to about 689 grams. So there you have the overall specifications, but how does it actually hold up in real-world tests? Well, I did a few different tests, starting by taking a look at the actual output. And so I used a lux meter testing at 1 meter distance and then also at a 3 meter distance just to give you see how the light fall off is. So at 1 meter, it's rated at a little, basically right over 2,000 lux. And obviously there's going to be some variability in terms of that distance. And so it's a little less scientific, a little less controlled when I test it. But I came up with right under 1,900 lux in that test. And so, you know, close, within about 5% of the rated capacity. Now they note in RGB mode that obviously you're going to be devoting all of the LED to one particular color, so you lose some light intensity to get the color shades. And so in RGB mode, if you're shooting in red, they're rating at 634 lux, green 688 lux, and blue at 194 lux. I should note that all of these figures to this point is without the reflector in place. And so that is just your bare light output at a 1 meter distance. I also tested at a 3 meter distance with just the bare light output and I saw 759 lux in my test there. Now you add the mini reflector on there, and obviously it really intensifies the amount of light output. So again, shooting at 6,500 Kelvin and a 1 meter distance, instead of about right under 2,000 lux, I got 12,000 lux on average in multiple tests. And then moving out to that 3 meter distance, also 6,500 Kelvin, I got right under 2,000 lux. And so a surprisingly strong and useful amount of light there. Now, I also wanted to test how it varied with varying light temperatures. And so I got up close, that's about 5 centimeters away from the reflector, and so that I could really kind of control the output. And shooting at 6,500, I got nearly 400,000 lux at that distance. And so I went to the other end of the spectrum, which is 2,700 Kelvin, so the warmest that will go in just that CCT mode. And I dropped from about 400,000 down to 310,000 range. And then if you put the little diffuser in place, the dome diffuser, it does do a nice job of making the light fall off much lighter and smoother, less harsh, but it is going to drop your capacity almost 50%. So from around 400,000 lux, I dropped to about 210,000 lux at that very close distance with that diffuser in place. So a very useful amount of light. In real world practicality, I was able to use the light for both video and for photo purposes, RGB, different things, and I was actually always pretty impressed with the amount of light output that was there. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to necessarily light a full set with it, depending on the kind of the ambient light you're dealing with. And outside, as a portrait light, it worked better with 1 or 2 people as opposed to trying to do with a group. But that's to be expected with a fixed light like this. I also did some tests of the included battery grip. And so using that internal or battery grip light, I put it at 100% output with a fully charged battery. And I got about 52 minutes of runtime out of it before the battery quit. Now, one thing that I really liked about this, as opposed to the small rig that I reviewed, kind of a similar light that I reviewed a few months ago, is that this stayed at 100% output all throughout that and basically until it died. Whereas I found that the small rig, that's the XC60B, that it actually, there was some kind of step down as the battery life was depleted. It stepped down the output, and so to kind of prolong the battery life, whereas this did not do that. So I appreciated that. I also found that when it was done, I did the test while I was in the room, just working at my workstation. The amount of noise produced from the fans is not really all that noticeable, and so that was nice. And then I noted when I got done and I felt around, that's nearly an hour running 100% intensity, that everything was still just barely warm. Now, as an alternate power source, I tested with a 99 watt hour V-mount battery, again starting at 100% capacity until it was fully depleted, and I got 80 minutes of runtime out of that configuration. So obviously very useful amounts of runtime in those applications. Now, as noted, I did use this for some portrait lighting, and I really loved the configuration because everything is so small that I was able to just drop it into my camera backpack, just like another one of the accessories. And what I've done is just threw a little QR plate on the bottom, and so I have a very lightweight travel tripod that's in my backpack. I was able to just pull that out, set it up, set it on this, and then use that as a light source. And so I was really quite impressed with the flexibility for using it in that kind of setting. There was good, obviously, color accuracy, and so I used it in some shots for the main fill. I used it for accent lighting. I used it to offset some backlighting in other situations, or to try to fill out where the light was dappled. And just the end result of using it, I found it very useful. And it's using a light like this as opposed to strobes is useful for 2 primary things that come to mind. One of those is if you're wanting to do a bit of a mixture of hybrid shooting, which is so common with modern cameras, where you're doing both some video and some stills. Obviously, your light source doesn't change from one to the other, and so you can really match your output with that without having to set up one kind of lighting for one scenario and obviously another set of lighting for the other. So I really like that. It's also, I think, a really useful option for those that are a little bit intimidated by the idea of strobing. You don't have to worry about modeling the light. You can see the light fall off, with your eye or through the viewfinder on the LCD screen. And so it makes it very easy to put the light in the right position and to get the end result that you want, because you can see it real time. And so I think that it's definitely useful for those that you just aren't as familiar with the idea of strobing. Now, for video lighting, I found it useful in a variety of ways. There's sufficient power here that I could help to offset some maybe bright side lighting, sun coming through the window, and provide enough of a fill light from the other side to balance the light. So that was useful. I also found it useful in lower light situations, particularly with the diffuser on there, to produce a nice, softer light that had less harsh shadows to it. And so that was good. Also in RGB mode, it allows you some flexibility, like if you're wanting to, get some of those kind of extreme accent kind of lighting, as you can see in a few of these shots that I've thrown together here. I've also used it, for example, like right behind me for another one of my videos. You can see the clip here where I've just added kind of a splash of color to the background. Obviously very useful for that kind of thing as well. And this kind of light is designed for video work, and so you're not getting flickering, and it's nice. It's a very nice stable light source for things like that. Now, most of these lights, as does this one, include effects mode, but typically those effects are kind of more gimmicky because they're limited to essentially just changing light temperature and intensity. In this case, because of having the RGB mode, for one thing, between the just bicolor and the RGB versions of the X60, there is 6 additional effects that are available on the RGB mode, and those really are kind of the more compelling ones because you can add that intensive amount of color into shot. So in this shot, kind of a more typical candlelight kind of shot, that you can typically do with a normal light, just kind of changing color temperature. But then this secondary shot where I'm emulating the lights from an emergency vehicle, a police car coming out, you can see that intense red, it's just not something you can achieve with just a bicolor light. And so it's just another layer of flexibility, so maybe a little bit less gimmicky. Now, one thing that is a little bit gimmicky is that one of the modes you can access from the back is a music mode, where obviously it has some little microphone somewhere, and so it will kind of strobe in response to the beat of music. I found that the music needs to be fairly loud, and to me it's more of a gimmicky kind of thing, not something I'm looking for, but maybe if you're shooting music videos, something like that, it could be useful. So anyway, there is a lot of versatility in the amount of modes that are available. You can access all of that via the controls on the back, which both click and then also rotate. Nice feeling, and there's a very small screen to allow you to access that information. It works fine, but you may find that using the app is just a little bit more versatile for that. So some things that I like. I love the portability. I love that it can be packed into a bag and it's very easy to bring along. I also love the style here, and obviously this is a light it's designed not just to be hidden, but it's cool enough that it might actually show up in some people's shots because it actually has a vibe to it. In fact, I've had more than one person ask me when I had it set up on a tripod, what kind of camera is that? Because it kind of looks like a retro camera in its look. So for those of us that love photography aesthetic, that light has some particular value to it. I also appreciate the flexibility of the powering options. There's essentially 4 different power options that you can utilize, and so there's lots of ways to get power to this little thing to get the light that you need. I also really like the integration of the battery grip. It's pop it into place, it's ready to go, no wires to run, and then it's just a quick release there button that you depress and you can pull it away. You could take it away to charge it. You could swap it out for another very, very well integrated kind of look, and the fact that it actually gives you something nice to hold on to. If you have an assistant or somebody that's hand holding the light, it obviously is very useful in that aspect as well. Obviously, the fact that it includes a carrying case with room for everything is useful. I also find that the battery life is long enough to actually be useful in the battery grip. It's not just a gimmick. And I will note that another positive thing is that I found that it actually recharged fairly quickly with less of a slowdown on the upper end. These are the kind of batteries that I like to recharge to 100% because I want to have that flexibility of the maximum capacity possible when I'm going out to use the light. And so I want to recharge it all the way, and I found that at the top end, this didn't slow way down, charge to say 90% reasonably fast and then really slow to top it off. It stayed at a pretty good rate of charge, so I appreciate that. The amount of light is also very useful, and the fact that you can use a decent set of modifiers to modify the quality of the light is useful as well. And that includes the fact that they do have a Bowens mount adapter, so maybe you already have some Bowens mount accessories that you could then use with this little light via the adapter. I appreciate the fact that it runs quiet, so you don't have really loud fans that are going to be a distraction or maybe get caught on microphone, but also the fact that it runs cool. And so I didn't feel any fear of it overheating because of that. The fact that it does have RGB options obviously does expand the versatility of the light, so that's appreciated there. The fact that it does have Bluetooth control is a big thing. That's one thing that I dig the SmallRig RC60B over. You can only control it from the back, and so if you wanted to put it at a up high angle, the fact that you would have a hard time getting to it to make back adjustments was a bit of a pain. So I appreciate that this actually has app control, and so you can remotely control it. And then the fact that the AC adapter is in the bag, also useful. So then even if you don't elect to pay for a battery mount, you have a way to power it. And if you have access to AC power, obviously, to run it for as long as you need. So some things that I don't like. On the actual battery grip, the power indicator is just 4 indicator lights. I prefer a little string with an actual percentage so you can know more precisely where you are in the battery life. So one complaint there. Obviously, if you're wanting to use adapters, accessories that you already have, modifiers that you already have, you're probably going to have to buy that Bowens mount accessory to enable you to use other things. And so obviously it's too small to actually have a Bowens mount. Bowens mount diameter is larger than this, but it just means that you are either going to have to buy into the XY or I guess it's ZY mount lineup of accessories, or you're going to have to use that adapter there. It's also more expensive than, say, the SmallRig RC60B that I've referred to a few times, even if you're just buying the bicolor version. As far as a straight-up value, I would say that SmallRig is probably a little bit better value in that sense, if your absolute budget is your priority. In conclusion, however, I really love the style and the versatility of the Zhiyun Molus X60. This is a really, really cool light that just does a lot of things and does them surprisingly well. It is more expensive than the SmallRig RC60B, but I think it does quite a few things better than that light. And so as I've used them both, I find that I actually do slightly prefer this. You can get a Pro kit with 2 battery grips and the Softbox. I think that is, even though it's the most expensive option at about $400 US, it actually is the sweet spot when you break down the price of the accessories. You're getting the best bang for the buck, and actually having multiple of these battery grips to pop in and out would be really, really useful if you're someone that isn't going to plug in and you don't want wires on set. I think that would be really, really handy. So the price range is anywhere from $200 US up to $400 US, depending on what variation that you buy. So there's a lot of flexibility there in what you want to spend, and what you're absolutely going to get in every one of these packages is a really cool light that does a lot of things amazingly well. I'm Dustin Abbott. If you want more information, you can look in the description down below. There is some buying links there, and also a link to my article that has more of my information from my test there if you want to check that out. As always, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and let the light in.